It was a Friday evening, and the smell of grilled chicken filled our dining room. My father set down his fork, looked straight at me, and said the words that would change everything. "We're taking your office space," he announced, not asked. My mother nodded in agreement. "Angela needs it for the baby." I looked at my younger sister, who avoided my eyes. 28 years old, paying over $2,000 a month to help this family stay afloat, and this was how they saw me. I nodded slowly and said, "Okay, I'll clear it out tomorrow." They had no idea what was coming. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And if you have ever felt taken for granted by the people closest to you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to see how this situation unfolds when someone finally decides enough is enough. My name is Donald, and at 28 years old, I work as a software developer for a tech company based out of California. The best part about my job is that it is completely remote, which means I can work from anywhere with a decent internet connection. My income sits comfortably in the six-figure range, around $120,000 annually, which is pretty solid for someone my age. But with that kind of income comes responsibility, especially when your family needs help. 3 years ago, my father lost his job when his company went bankrupt. It happened suddenly without warning, and it hit our family hard. My mother works part-time at a local bookstore, but her income has never been substantial. With my father unemployed and bills piling up, including a mortgage that still had 15 years left on it, I made a decision. I moved back home to help them through what I thought would be a temporary rough patch. The house I grew up in sits in a quiet suburb. Nothing fancy but comfortable. When I moved back, I took over the corner room on the second floor, which had a beautiful view of the backyard garden. I invested around $5,000 into turning it into a proper home office. Dual monitors, an ergonomic chair that cost more than most people's monthly car payments, soundproofing panels on the walls, professional lighting for video calls. My work demands complete focus and silence, especially during client meetings and coding marathons that can last 8 to 10 hours straight. Every month, like clockwork, I contribute $2,500 to the household expenses. $1,500 goes directly to the mortgage payment. $500 covers groceries because feeding a family of 4 is not cheap. Another $300 handles utilities, internet, electricity, water, and gas. When I first moved back, my parents were incredibly grateful. My mother would tear up sometimes, thanking me for being such a good son. My father would pat my shoulder and say things like, "We'll get back on our feet soon, and you can get your own place again." But somewhere along the way, something shifted. My father found a new job about a year after I moved back, but it paid significantly less than his previous position. Instead of the $70,000 he used to make, he now brought home around $45,000 annually. My mother's part-time work added maybe another $12,000. Together, they were earning less than I did alone, but they were earning. The temporary arrangement I had agreed to started feeling permanent, but I told myself it was okay. Family helps family, right? Except they stopped acting like I was helping them. The gratitude disappeared, replaced by expectation. My mother stopped saying thank you when I handed over my monthly contribution. My father stopped talking about me eventually moving out. Instead, they started treating my money like it was already theirs, like it was owed rather than given freely. The disrespect started small. My mother would barge into my office during work hours without knocking, interrupting important video calls to ask if I wanted lunch. When I politely asked her to knock first, she seemed offended. "It is just lunch," she would say, as if my work was not real work because I did it from home. My father made comments about me just being on the computer anyway, dismissing the complexity of what I actually did for a living. To them, real work meant leaving the house wearing a uniform, punching a time clock. My sister Angela and her husband Kyle started coming over more frequently. They would be loud, laughing, and talking in the hallway right outside my office door, even when they knew I was in the middle of my workday. One afternoon, after a particularly noisy visit interrupted a crucial meeting with a client, I asked them politely if they could keep it down. My father overheard and pulled me aside later. "It is our house," he said firmly. "We can do what we want." That statement hit me harder than he probably intended. Our house, not my house too, even though I was paying a significant portion of the bills. I was a tenant to them, maybe even less than that. A tenant would at least have rights boundaries, a lease that protected certain expectations. I had nothing but an increasingly uncomfortable feeling that I had become their personal ATM machine. But I swallowed my frustration and kept working, kept paying, kept hoping things would somehow improve. I loved my family despite everything. I wanted to believe that deep down they appreciated what I was doing for them. I wanted to believe that their lack of gratitude was just thoughtlessness, not genuine disregard for my contributions. I was wrong. That Friday dinner started ordinarily enough. My mother had prepared her usual weekend meal, grilled chicken with roasted vegetables and mashed potatoes. Angela and Kyle joined us, which had become increasingly common. We sat around the table making small talk about the weather, about Kyle's job, at the auto shop, about neighborhood gossip. Everything felt normal until my father cleared his throat in that particular way that signals an announcement. "We need to talk about something," he said, setting down his fork with deliberate care. Everyone's attention shifted to him. Angela is 3 months pregnant now. He smiled at my sister, who blushed slightly. "Congratulations are in order, of course. But this also means we need to make some changes around here." I felt a knot forming in my stomach before he even continued. "We are taking your office space," my father said, looking directly at me. "Not asking, not discussing, telling. Angela and Kyle need it for the baby's room. You can work from the living room or set up something in your bedroom. The living room where the television blared sports games and talk shows throughout the day. My bedroom, which was half the size of my current office and had no space for my equipment. Neither option was viable for someone who worked 40 to 50 hours a week doing intensive, focused work. "When were you planning to tell me about this?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "We are telling you now," my father replied, as if that answered the question. "You have the weekend to clear everything out. Angela and Kyle want to start setting up the nursery next week." My mother chimed in her tone, suggesting this was all perfectly reasonable. "You understand, right? Donald family comes first. You can work anywhere, but a baby needs a proper room." I looked at Angela, hoping for some sign of solidarity, some acknowledgement that this was unfair. She stared down at her plate, unable or unwilling to meet my eyes. That told me everything I needed to know. She had been part of this conversation, had agreed to this plan, had likely even suggested it. My own sister, who I had helped support indirectly for 3 years by keeping our parents financially stable, could not even look at me. Kyle, oblivious or simply uncaring, smiled broadly. "Thanks, man. This really helps us out. Nursery furniture is expensive, you know. This saves us from having to find a bigger place." The irony was not lost on me. They were taking my space to save themselves money. Never mind that I had been saving them money for years. Never mind that my office was not just a room, it was my workplace, my livelihood. Never mind that I had invested thousands of dollars into making it functional for my needs. "Okay," I said quietly. "I will clear it out tomorrow." The table went silent. They had clearly expected resistance arguments, maybe even anger. My father's eyebrows rose slightly. My mother tilted her head, studying my face. "You are not upset?" she asked carefully. I looked at her, then at my father, then at Angela, who still would not meet my eyes. Would it matter if I was? The question hung in the air unanswered. No one knew what to say to that. The truth was obvious to all of us in that moment, even if no one wanted to acknowledge it. My feelings did not matter. My needs did not matter. I was there to serve a function, nothing more. I finished my meal in silence, excused myself, and walked upstairs to my office. I closed the door behind me, sat on my desk chair, and stared at the wall for a long time. The room that had been my sanctuary, my professional space, my one corner of this house where I could create and build and earn, would be gone by Monday, and I had not been consulted, only informed. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. Around 11:30 I heard voices drifting up from downstairs. My parents talking in what they probably thought were hushed tones, but sound carries in old houses with thin walls. That was easier than I thought, my mother said. He knows he cannot say no, my father replied. Where else would he go? He is making good money. He should help his sister. She is starting a family. Exactly. And honestly, he has been living here rent-free anyway. It is time he contributed more to family needs. Rent-free. The words echoed in my head like a slap. Rent-free. I paid over $2,000 every single month. Over the past 3 years, that added up to more than $70,000 I had contributed to keeping this household running. And they thought I lived here rent-free. In that moment, lying alone in the dark, I understood something I had been avoiding for months. They did not see my contributions as help. They saw them as the bare minimum, as what I owed them for the privilege of sleeping under their roof. My work was not real to them. My money was expected. My presence was tolerated only as long as I remained useful. They thought I was dependent on them, that I needed this house, this arrangement. They thought I had nowhere else to go, no other options. They had convinced themselves that they were doing me a favor by letting me stay, rather than the other way around. I opened my laptop, the blue light, illuminating my face in the darkness. My fingers moved across the keyboard, almost automatically pulling up rental listings in the area. 1-bedroom apartments, studios, anything within a 10-mile radius. I scrolled through dozens of options, comparing prices, amenities, locations. With my income, I could easily afford my own place. I had been stupid not to realize this sooner, not to see how much I had let them take advantage of my good intentions. The numbers were clear. Even paying $1,800 or $2,000 in rent for my own apartment, plus utilities and expenses, I would still be better off financially than staying here and continuing to subsidize their lifestyle. More importantly, I would have my dignity back. I would have respect boundaries, a space that was truly mine. Over the past 3 years, while living here and paying their bills, I had managed to save around $50,000. My expenses were low because I was not paying rent in my mind. I was helping family. But now I realized that savings could be my ticket to freedom. I had more than enough for a security deposit first and last month's rent and moving expenses. By 2 in the morning, I had found 3 apartments to view the next day. By 3, I had sent emails requesting tours. By 4, I had made my decision. I was leaving, and I was not going to tell them until it was done. Saturday morning arrived, with pale sunlight filtering through my bedroom window. I heard my parents moving around downstairs, the familiar sounds of coffee brewing, and the television turning on. I got dressed in my running clothes, grabbed my keys, and headed downstairs. Going for a run, I called out, not waiting for a response. My father grunted from the living room, barely looking up from his newspaper. My mother was in the kitchen, already planning her day. Neither of them suspected anything. I had scheduled 3 apartment viewings between 9 and noon, all within a 15-minute drive from the house. The first apartment was a disappointment. The space was cramped. The walls thin enough that I could hear neighbors arguing next door, and the single window looked out onto a brick wall. I thanked the landlord and moved on. The second option was better, but still not right. It was clean and modern, but the location was too far from the park, where I liked to run in the mornings, and the building itself felt sterile without character. I could live there, but I would not be happy. The third apartment, though, was perfect. The moment I walked in, I knew this was it. Located on the 8th floor of a mid-rise building, it offered a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom layout with a spacious living room that would easily accommodate my office setup. The bedroom was comfortable, the kitchen had been recently updated, and the bathroom had both a shower and a bathtub. But what sold me was the view from the living room window. I could see for miles trees and sky stretching out before me, and the natural light that poured in would be perfect for work. Rent is $1,800 per month, the landlord explained, a friendly woman in her 50s, named Mrs. Patterson. Utilities are separate, usually run about $150 to $200 depending on the season. There is a fitness center in the building, covered parking and laundry facilities on every floor. The unit is available immediately if you want it. I did not hesitate. I will take it. She blinked, surprised by the quick decision. Do not. You want to think about it. Talk it over with family. No, I said firmly. I am ready to move forward now. We went back to her office in the building's leasing center. I filled out the application, provided proof of income references from previous landlords before I had moved back home, and my credit score, which was excellent. By noon, I had signed the lease, paid the security deposit of $1,800 plus first month's rent, and received my keys. I could move in as early as the following Friday. Walking back to my car keys to my new apartment clutched in my hand, I felt something I had not felt in years. Freedom, possibility, control over my own life. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, just breathing, letting the reality sink in. In 1 week I would be out of that house. I would be free. The rest of that day, I put on the performance of my life. I returned home sweaty from an actual run I took after the apartment viewings and headed straight upstairs. I began the process of clearing out my office, boxing up books, unplugging equipment, dismantling the setup I had so carefully built. My father came up to check on my progress around mid-afternoon. Good, he said, nodding approvingly. Angela and Kyle will appreciate this. I smiled tightly and kept packing. He did not notice the way I was labeling boxes, the careful inventory I was taking of every single item that belonged to me. He did not notice that I was not just clearing out the office, I was preparing to leave entirely. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 days of carefully orchestrated deception. I maintained my normal routine, ate dinner, with the family, made small talk, paid my monthly contribution on Monday, as always, $2,500, transferred to my father's account. He accepted it without thanks, as had become customary. But every day while they were at work or distracted, I moved a little more of my life out of that house. A suitcase full of clothes loaded into my car trunk, driven to the new apartment, carried up to the 8th floor. Boxes of books hidden in my car overnight, transported the next morning. My important documents, laptop accessories, personal items, all gradually migrating to my new space. By Thursday evening, the only things left in my room were the large furniture pieces. My bed, which I had bought myself, my desk and office chair, my dresser. Everything else was already gone, and they had not noticed a thing. Friday morning arrived. I lay in bed, listening to my parents get ready for work, the same routine they had followed for years. Shower, running coffee maker, gurgling car doors, slamming. By 8:15 they were both gone, the house falling into silence. I had called in to work earlier, letting my manager know I needed a personal day. He had been fine with it. I had plenty of vacation time saved up. At exactly 9 o'clock, the moving truck pulled up outside. I had hired a small moving company, just 2 guys with a truck to handle the furniture. It took less than 3 hours to load everything and transport it to the new apartment. By noon, my room in my parents' house was completely empty except for dust outlines where furniture had stood. I walked through the space one last time, remembering the 3 years I had spent here. Despite everything, there had been good moments. Holidays, meals together, conversations. But those memories were now tainted by the realization that I had never been valued, only used. This room, like me, had been seen as a resource to be exploited, rather than something to be respected. Downstairs, I placed an envelope on the kitchen table, where my parents would see it immediately upon returning home. Inside was my house key, and a brief note written on plain paper. Thank you for everything. I found my own place. I will call you soon, Donald. No explanation, no accusations, no emotional appeals. Just facts. I took one last look around the house where I had grown up. The house I had helped save from foreclosure through my contributions. The house that had never really felt like home again, after I returned. Then I walked out the front door, got into my car, and drove away. I did not look back in the rearview mirror. There was nothing behind me worth seeing anymore. By 5:30 that evening, I was sitting on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes eating takeout Chinese food straight from the container. My phone had been buzzing non-stop for the past 30 minutes. Missed calls from my mother, from my father, text messages demanding to know where I was, what I had done, why I had not told them. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the task of setting up my new space. Finally, around 6, I answered, when my mother called for the 8th time. Her voice was high-pitched, panicked. "Donald, where are you? What happened? The house is empty. Your room is empty. I moved out," I said calmly, taking another bite of lo mein. "I found my own place." "What? Why did you not tell us? This is crazy. You cannot just leave like this." "You did not ask me before taking my office space," I replied evenly. "You just decided. So I decided too. I am 28 years old, Mom. It is time I lived on my own." There was a moment of stunned silence before my father's voice came through, having grabbed the phone from her. "This is ridiculous. You come back here right now. We need to talk about this like adults. No, Dad. I am not coming back. We can talk, but I am not changing my mind. I have signed a lease. This is my home now. We took your office for a good reason. Your sister needs that space, and I need my own space. You made a decision for your family. I made a decision for mine. The difference is, my decision only affects me. What about the money? What about helping us?" There it was. Not concern for my well-being, not worry about our relationship, just the money. I had expected it, but hearing it so plainly still stung. "I have been helping you for 3 years," I said quietly. "Over $70,000 in direct contributions, not counting the value of having someone else in the house, helping with chores, being there for emergencies. I think I have done my part. We are your family, I know. And when you really need help, I will still be here. But I am not your safety net anymore. I am not your backup plan. I am your son, and I deserve respect." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline coursing through my system. But underneath the nervousness was something else. Pride, relief, the knowledge that I had finally stood up for myself after letting them walk over me for so long. The calls and messages continued throughout the weekend, but I did not respond to most of them. I was busy settling into my new life, arranging furniture, setting up my office in the living room corner where natural light poured in through those beautiful windows. On Sunday, Angela called. Unlike my parents, her voice was quiet, almost ashamed. "Mom and Dad are freaking out," she said. "I imagine they are. They just realized how much money you were giving them every month. The mortgage payment is due in 2 weeks, and they do not have enough to cover it." I felt a flicker of guilt quickly suppressed. That was not my problem anymore. They were both employed adults. They could figure it out. "They will manage," I said. "Kyle and I decided not to move in after all," Angela continued. "We found our own place. Honestly, we were never completely comfortable with the idea of taking your space. Mom and Dad pushed for it. That was interesting. And telling. My parents had orchestrated the entire situation, pressuring Angela to go along with it, assuming I would simply comply. They had counted on my passivity, my desire to keep the peace, my inability to say no to family. They had miscalculated badly. "I am sorry," Donald, Angela said softly. "I should have said something at dinner. I knew it was not right." "You should have," I agreed. "But you did not, and here we are. I hope you and Kyle are happy in your new place. I really do. And congratulations on the baby." We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Despite everything, I did not hate my sister. She had been weak, had gone along with something she knew was wrong, but she was young and dealing with her own pressures. I could forgive that even if I could not forget it. The next 2 weeks were transformative. Without the constant background stress of living in my parents' house, my work improved dramatically. My productivity increased. My manager noticed, commenting on several successful projects I completed ahead of schedule. 3 weeks after moving out, I received a raise, an additional $10,000, added to my annual salary, in recognition of my contributions. The irony was not lost on me. As soon as I left the environment that drained me, I thrived. I established new routines. Morning runs in the park near my building, something I had not done regularly in years. Cooking actual meals for myself, instead of eating whatever my mother prepared. Going to the gym in my building 3 times a week. Getting back into shape, feeling stronger both physically and mentally. I met neighbors in the elevator and hallway-friendly people who respected boundaries and privacy. I was building a life that was entirely mine. My parents tried various tactics to get me to come back, or at least resume financial support. Guilt trips, anger, manipulation, threats to cut me off from the family completely as if that was a threat, rather than a relief at this point. I held firm on my boundaries. I would help in true emergencies, but I would not resume monthly payments. I would not be their financial plan anymore. 1 month after I moved out, my father called with a different tone in his voice. Tired, defeated. "Your mother and I want you to come to dinner. Please. We need to talk." I agreed cautiously. That Saturday evening I drove back to the house for the first time since I had left. Walking through that front door felt surreal, like visiting a place I had only ever seen in photographs. The house looked the same, but everything felt different. I was different. Dinner was awkward at first. My parents clearly unsure how to act around me now that I was no longer under their control. But as the meal progressed, something shifted. My father cleared his throat, that same gesture he had made 6 weeks earlier when destroying my world. But this time his words were different. "We owe you an apology," he said, not looking directly at me. "We took you for granted. We treated you like you owed us something when really you were doing us a massive favor. We are sorry." My mother wiped tears from her eyes. "We thought you needed us," she said, her voice breaking. "We thought you were staying because you could not make it on your own. But you were staying to help us, and we threw that back in your face. We needed you, Donald. We needed you, and we did not appreciate you." I sat quietly, letting their words sink in. Part of me wanted to yell, to list every slight and insult and moment of disrespect from the past 3 years. But another part, the part that had grown stronger over the past month, knew that anger would not serve me. They had learned their lesson. Whether they truly understood what they had done or simply regretted losing their financial support was unclear. But they were at least acknowledging their mistakes. "I wanted to help," I said finally. "I loved helping you. But I needed to be respected, not used. I needed you to see me as a person, not a paycheck." "You were right to leave," my father said, and I could see how much it cost him to admit that. "We needed to learn this lesson. We just wish it had not taken losing you to figure it out." We talked for hours that night, clearing the air in ways we should have done years ago. They explained their financial pressures, their fears about the future, their struggle to adapt to changed circumstances after my father lost his job. I explained how their lack of respect had made me feel invisible, how being ordered out of my office was the final straw in a long series of boundary violations. We agreed on new terms. I would visit regularly, maintain our family relationship, but I would not move back in. If they faced true emergencies, I would help, but I would not resume regular payments. They needed to learn to live within their means, to plan their finances without counting on me as a guaranteed resource. It would not be easy for them, but it was necessary. 6 months later, our relationship had evolved into something healthier than it had ever been. We had dinner together twice a month, but I always drove back to my own apartment afterward. When Angela had her baby, a girl they named Emma, I was there at the hospital bringing flowers and gifts. I became Uncle Donald, a role I cherished, but I maintained clear boundaries about babysitting expectations and financial requests. My parents struggled at first, having to adjust their budget and lifestyle to match their actual income. My father picked up some weekend work to make ends meet. My mother increased her hours at the bookstore. They sold one of their cars to reduce expenses. It was hard for them, but they managed. And slowly, grudgingly, they learned to respect the boundaries I had set. As for me, I flourished in my independence. A year after moving out, I was promoted to senior developer with another significant raise. I started dating someone I met at the gym, a relationship built on mutual respect and equality, rather than obligation. I traveled taking advantage of my remote work flexibility to spend 2 weeks in Colorado, a week in New York, a long weekend in Seattle. I was living the life I had put on hold when I moved back home, and it felt incredible. Standing in my apartment now, looking out those windows at the city below, I sometimes think about that Friday dinner when my father announced they were taking my office. At the time, it felt like the worst thing that could happen. In reality, it was the wake-up call I needed. It forced me to recognize a truth I had been avoiding, that love and obligation are not the same thing, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to walk away. My parents learned that people are not resources to be exploited, even family. They learned that respect must be given to receive it in return. They learned that assumptions about dependence can be dangerously wrong. Most importantly, they learned that good intentions do not excuse bad behavior, and that taking someone for granted will eventually drive them away. I learned that setting boundaries is not selfish. I learned that my worth is not determined by how much I sacrifice for others. I learned that sometimes you have to lose something to appreciate it, and sometimes that applies to family relationships too. I learned that walking away from a bad situation, even when that situation involves people you love, can be the healthiest choice you ever make. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. And sometimes that is exactly what people need to wake up and realize what they have been taking for granted. My father thought asking that question at dinner would solve a problem. Instead, it solved a much bigger one, just not the way he expected. Have you ever been taken for granted by family? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between helping someone you love and respecting yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories and experiences. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means everything. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you find the courage to set boundaries in your own life when you need to. Remember, you deserve respect, no matter who it is from. Take care of yourselves out there.